Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Yo, good, good. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well.
Good, good, good. I think it might just be us for the beginning of this.
That's cool. That's cool. If you want, we could take that time. You could show me your app, Ameliorate. Is that how you say it? Sorry,
Ameliorate.
Ameliorate. Yeah. Because I missed it. I did watch your video though, the video that you showed everyone else. But if there's new things you want to show off, I'd be happy to take a look.
I'd be happy to share. Let's see. I actually just merged something like 10 minutes ago. Let me see if the deployment finished.
I've just been looking
Alright,
into
nice, right.
looking into Hugging Face for models and data sets for argument mining. I'm trying to see if I can see what they're doing there to use that to plug into ChatGPT as like few shot training or whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I've been doing for the last hour.
I have not looked into that, but in one of our meetings, someone mentioned Hugging Face, so I very, very briefly familiar. Yeah, I was just thinking with all the AI stuff lately that one thing that would be cool is like mining, like similar to mining arguments, but like mining the problem graph instead. Like not just arguments, but like this kind of structure that I'm going for. I can
Yeah. I honestly I think that's possible. I think it's either there and I just don't know how to do it yet. I'm not in that tech field, or it's so close to being there.
I'm sure. Well, I think one of the main problems is just that the structure I'm making is like somewhat, well, I'm just making it intuitively, so it's not like it's a common. I think the problem solution model itself is probably used, and there's like the IBIS framework that adds like questions and answers and stuff. But I've added like solution components, which are supposed to allow you to like reuse across solutions. Like if you, so I don't know if you remember, I think Bentley was presenting his scoring thing, and we came across this issue of like, oh, well, we're building something about public transit, and it's like, if we build the railroad over here, we can avoid one of the major problems with this solution. And so what I'm hoping with components is that you can easily make two solutions that are like very similar. We're using like most of the components, but then there's like one component that's like different, and then you can like visually indicate that.
Interesting. Yeah. I think I see where you're going. That's kind of neat. So
So
it's almost
this
like
is
you're extracting out specific concepts in Marc Antoine's words from like a claim and making them, just highlighting them in these green component boxes in a sense.
right. Yeah. Well, it's not general enough for like all claims to be able to extract components right now. They're just specific to solutions in particular. But yeah, and I haven't considered that, I guess, generalizing it, but generalizing it does sound useful. But yeah, as you can see, like the graph very quickly becomes a little hectic with all the edges, because like if you make an edge between oh, this looks awkward too, because there's an edge between the solution and the component for the solution has the component, and then there's a overlapping edge between the solution problem. Basically, I made it automatically connect, like the component's a separate node, but anything that it's connected to will also be connected to the solution. So if I make like a problem here, then this component solves this new problem that didn't exist before. Well, now there's also an edge to the original solution. It's very hectic right now, but and I think I think just to like help manage that, I'm just gonna make it like not by default create a bunch of edges, and then there'll be like a button like automatically create implied edges that you can like toggle, and that way you know it's happening. And then like I also plan to add like right click to hide components, so you can like quickly switch between the very high level view and the, you know, looking at the details of a solution. But let's see. Yeah, so adding components is, I guess, one of the big things of recent that has been added to the tool. I still haven't done additional research into the like just Googling problem ontology, solution ontology, just to like see what people have come up with for like what might be types of information to add as like node types here. Right now, everything there's a problem and solution, there's criteria, there's components for solutions, and there's also effects. So, and of course the you know, support and critiques off to the side. But yeah, these are the 5 right now. Got a I found this like this fun controversial debate video between that's like one person's arguing for socialism and one person's arguing for capitalism, and I was using that to kind of build a map to kind of show off the different node types I have.
Yeah, that's good. I was just gonna ask for some examples, and you have them right there. That's perfect.
I think this is the only one that actually uses components right now, but so this, yeah, so this can hopefully show up a little bit. So like in the video, the one of the main controversial, I guess, pieces of true capitalism is that there's no social support at all, for no social programs for, you know, people that can't support themselves. And so a positive from the capitalist perspective was that like people who can't sustain themselves just die off, and it's like, wow, natural selection, great, we're gonna be a perfect society. So you'll also notice that scores here are like 9 being I think this is important, this is a good thing, 1 being this is a bad thing, and I've scored this from the capitalists' perspectives, just because that was kind of how I started doing it. So
Do you have a view or plan on creating a view to change perspectives from in terms of the scoring?
Yeah, unfortunately right now in my first phase, there's no backend. So it's all in your browser right now.
Yeah.
Very close to being done with phase 1. So hopefully within the next month, I'll be starting on the backend. But once the backend's there, then you'll be able to share, hopefully just with a link to share to a topic you've made. And then once that's done, you can, like, each person will have their own scoring. So you'll be able to switch between what my score looks like, my scores look like, what someone else's scores look like. And I also hope, I just been mentally experimenting with like a perspective view that just like kind of clusters all of the scores of people. And instead of, you know, kind of just like, you imagine this like a 9 and a 7 and a 6, like all like circle in like a circle here, to quickly see like differences in scores for like the same thing. And you could maybe, when you hover them, it would show like, oh, this was this person's score and this was this person's score. When there's, sorry, go ahead.
Keep going. No, keep going.
I was gonna say that like also like even further in the future from that, hey Bentley, even further in
Hey,
the
Bentley.
future from that, just the idea of like clustering algorithms to like create types of perspectives or that are like similar, and just if you have like 100 people that scored a thing, instead of showing like 100 circles on each node, just trying to like group them into similar types of views, I guess. And then each view would just have one score that's maybe like an average or something. And that might be a cool way to see perspectives as well.
What are you planning on using for the backend? You said you're going to it soon.
Probably. So I'm just using TypeScript on the front end, probably TypeScript on the back end, just to make it more accessible between the front and back end. Like people who work on the front end also can like easily. I like the idea of keeping it as similar as possible. So if people can jump between them without having to learn another language. Thinking about using Nest.js for like the API rather than, yeah, there's a bunch of questions that I need to like, I haven't made many backends from scratch. So I think like, should I use like serverless technology that's more like Lambdas, individual endpoints, rather than like, you know, a whole server that can support all of the endpoints or I don't know. I'm leaning towards Nest.js because I think it's safer to support like anything I would want to support. Whereas like if I went with just individual Lambdas, there are some things that may not be supported out of the box or less customizability, I guess. I don't know. But I guess also an interesting implementation detail that I would want to solidify is if I should use a graph database for this structure, rather than like a relational database with a table for nodes and a table for edges or something like that. I really like the idea of using something that's popular, where like relational is much more popular, but like graph seems much more appropriate for this data. So there's probably just a bunch of free wins to get by using graph database, but not quite as popular as relational. So I don't know.
Yeah, with my limited knowledge on databases, I agree with basically what you said. That's what I kind of think of if I ever get to the point where I'm actually needing to deal with that question.
Yeah.
That's where I sit currently.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah,
right.
I'm thinking about what I'd recommend for that. I think like Postgres is fairly well known, and I think it has both graph and relational.
So that's actually another. Yeah, I also haven't done a lot of research into multi-paradigm databases, which is probably ideal because not like there's still going to be like user information and like other data that's not part of this like diagram. So where like a table might be more preferable, or you know, relational style might be more preferable. So if there's, you know, Postgres or something that supports both, then like the graph data could make sense as like the graph style, and then the other data could be not graph style.
I was also looking, I haven't done any Next.js. I do a lot of React, but started all that before Next.js came out. So I haven't checked it. But I don't know, like Next.js includes server-side generation, allows you to write client-side content, but I don't know if it also needs a separate, kind of like it needs a data store with an API anyways. Like, I don't know if it solves the API issue.
So I am using Nest.js for this just front end right now, but I do know that it does come with support for serverless and edge style computing, where it's just like per API endpoint, it would spin something up to like respond to the requests. It
Yeah, I'm
doesn't.
just wondering, does it, just kind of glancing at code, it looks like it then, for that edge thing, it then expects to hit
A
the database
database,
API.
yeah, separately.
So you might still need to use functions, or if it's like Postgres or Firestore or something like that, then they have an API that you can then hit.
Oh yeah, right.
Are you using 12 or 13?
Next.js.
Yeah.
I think I'm still on 12. Am I sharing my screen or am I sharing I'm sharing the screen. Pretty sure I'm on 12. Oh no. Wait, can you see the code on my screen?
Yep.
Oh, that is so weird. I switched to another desktop, and it followed me. So pretty sure next. Yeah, 12.2. So I think, yeah, 13. I think, you know, my project is in its infancy enough that like it'd be easy enough to upgrade. And I'll probably do that soon. But I think I looked at like the features that it gives, and it's like a bunch of kind of nice things, but I don't think anything like directly impacted my like architecture or anything. So yeah. So yeah, Bentley, I was just we were just looking for topics, so I just started sharing where my project is currently at.
That's cool.
I have this like example that shows off. I added component nodes, criteria nodes, and effect nodes since last time. There's some. I also improved the score looking, I guess, adding color to it to highlight like what you think is the most important or not. Oh, I did also add this is supposed to be the decision matrix where it lines up the solutions against the criteria, and then you can say like, well, I think discouraging unsustainable lifestyles is the most important part of this solution, and this socialism doesn't discourage unsustainable lifestyles at all. I scored this from well, I made this diagram from a debate between capitalist and a socialist, and I scored it from the like capitalist perspective, and it's
Right.
Specifically a like more controversial extreme version of capitalism where there's like no support, no social support system. So the like great thing about it is that it really takes advantage of natural selection. So if you can't survive on your own, you
Right.
literally but
The benefit to the survivors.
I guess in a way it also kind of decreases diversity, which wasn't mentioned in their debate, but that's one thing that I would add. But
So do you have what's a claim in here?
so
One?
yeah, let's look at it. So true capitalism embodies all these. This is very hectic, and I hope to add ways to make this like less hectic. True capitalism embodies unsustainable lifestyles. That criteria. So if you click in here, you get to the claim view, which is also kind of hard to read because this is cut off. Gain from, oh yeah, so a critique of discouraging the unsustainable lifestyles is that like, well, you can get inheritance and stock while and survive basically without having a sustainable lifestyle. You know, if you just like luck into some wealth, then you wouldn't need to be contributing to society or anything. So that was a critique that was given in the video. Let's see what else this true capitalism embodies does not discriminate on birth. I think, yeah, so that's a similar idea. Critique does discriminate. Well, so the socialist was arguing that everyone has equal opportunity kind of thing. So not discriminating based on birth is good. And so they critiqued the capitalism, saying that, well, you could be born into wealth and that gives you a better, much more opportunity in a capitalist society.
But in general, a claim is signified in this system by a line. usually. In
Well,
this
so
way.
this
Well, what I call a claim, I guess.
yeah, so all nodes and edges have an implicit claim. So we looked at 2 edge implicit claims, but the nodes themselves just imply it's just like an is important claim. So this does not discriminate based on birth. We should care about that. Or let's see what the claims are. Everyone should have a chance. Oops.
Okay.
Everyone should have a chance in society is a reason to not discriminate by birth. Incentives can be useful. Okay, I think this critique's actually more just like critiquing discrimination in general, where like I think I may have mismapped this, but the socialist was arguing that even in a socialist society, you might want to provide some like minimal incentives to get people to try to have higher quality of production, rather than just like everybody gets paid the same amount regardless. So if you do a poor job, then it doesn't matter, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, this I guess yeah. So in summary, every node can have justifications and critiques for the implicit, like this node is important, and that every edge has justification and critiques for node 1 does have this relation to node 2, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting because and I don't know if you've run across this, but one of the sayings in CDO is everything's debatable. And Marc Antoine's is reminding us constantly that you need to have a hypergraph. So then that's where you can point to edges. And of course you have this here because you have an edge and that's a claim, and that claim can be argued for and against.
Right.
So
Yeah, I didn't know that
only
term. That's good to know. Hypergraph.
yeah, is your only scoring method right now importance?
That is all there is right now. I think it's good enough to start with. I am aware of like separating like truth from importance or relevance, and that is something that'd be another UI problem to solve. Because right now that I guess it could be maybe just another dial, and then like everything would have 2 options or 3 or whatever. But yeah, is that kind of where you were getting at, like separating the truth from, like, if I think this is true,
Yeah.
but I don't think it really matters here.
Yeah, so we often say truth and dang, what's the other word? I've forgotten now. Relevance.
Sure. Relevance.
And I tend to use importance rather than relevance because the way the terms are used, it's like this, they both may be 100% relevant, but this one's really more important. So you can,
Right.
in my concept, it's more than 100% relevant because it needs to discount the other ones if you're rolling it up into one score. But importance sounds like it's conflating. So in my system, both relevance and importance are actually the same mathematical number.
No.
And whether it's importance or relevance is how you're using that number. So if it's above 100%, it's saying it's more important than the other things. If it's below it's either less important or less relevant. Is the way I handle
Mm.
it. Now, what's interesting is that also an importance rating on something in my system is debatable. So, and actually it's a claim to say this thing is more important than the other, or this, let's say this thing is less relevant, is a claim that can be debated. It sounds like there's
Oh,
probably not a way to do that in your current system.
yeah. You mean specifically like, well, oh yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, because like here, as a capitalist, I say like this discourages unsustainable lifestyles. Yeah, that's an A. That's super important. I want that natural selection, and support people who can't support themselves as a 1
Well, I
because I
guess
want
yours
that
are,
natural.
yeah, yours are specifically importance and not relevant.
Correct.
How do you handle relevance, or do
So,
you? Yeah.
well, it's not explicitly handled. It is kind of handled by edges where like this criteria is criterion for this
So yeah,
problem.
so
So you can kind
if you're
of,
battling, if you put a con against that criterion, then it's kind of implying it's either, it could be a truth wrong or it could be a relevance. Right.
yeah, yeah. But I guess by the fact that it's an edge, like nodes are probably more likely to be like without the edge, it's not like what is this relevant to? It's like it's just is this important or not? And then with the edge, it's usually more leaning towards like this is a connection between 2 things. So it's like feels more relevancy than truthy.
Yeah, actually,
Um,
whenever I'm doing my original design, if you're putting a con on an edge, the assumption was it was relevance.
no,
Although my edges might be in a
no,
different place than yours.
a different place. Oh, you mean well, if we are just doing like a
So, I mean, for me,
sort
edges are only like my. It seems like I don't know. For me, a claim is an atomic unit, but it looks like maybe it's just different ways of saying the same thing.
I
So
think
that's a
these are
node you have there.
so well, claims are nodes. This is kind of so I have a different like node type for implicit claims, which are just like, behind each of these nodes on the main problem diagram, you have each node and each edge makes an implicit claim. It's not, unfortunately, the UI doesn't really make clear from this view what you're actually saying, but from this node supports those who cannot support themselves. We're saying that's important implicitly, and the score is like how important. So the critiques, these are also separate claims, which now that we've entered like the claim view, we're just going, everything's a claim or a critique and support, and you can go forever. But these still have like their edges that like this critiques that claim, and they're a node that I guess the implicit claim on each of these is just there's no implicit claim. It's this is an explicit claim now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. Trying to think. There's kind of the explicit claim that the statement is true, or
Right.
that's the wider wording of it, right?
Yeah. That like all the critiques and support are they're claims. They're also claims. So I guess when we enter this world, we're just assuming everything is a claim.
It might be interesting to map something in this and to map it in reason score and see if there's any context that is lost in either of the mappings. Because mine has mine has, I think, a simpler data structure. which has the risk of, you know,
Like,
not
handling
representing
some-
everything very well.
Right.
But I also, my theory is that, and so I kind of fight against some complexity in a lot of the other system designs. Just trying to reduce it, but the
Mhm.
risk is that I'm leaving something out.
Right.
So it'd be interesting if I tried to take this and map it. Now, of course, my system doesn't handle. Do you have any multi like, is this
This
a
thing-
problem solution issue?
So this is
Yeah.
there's like this root problem, and then there's like a couple solutions here, and there's like a decision matrix that puts the solutions up against the criteria. So you can kind of compare the solutions.
Yeah, so I guess so reason score doesn't go up that high in the complexity stack.
Right.
So I would represent only either one of those solutions, or maybe even a sub branch of one of those solutions of one of the top claims.
Mhm.
So, and Michael, let me know if I just kind of jumped in and took over the conversation.
No, it's all
I
good.
just
yeah.
realized that. I just like
Uh,
dove in.
This is good. No, absolutely.
So it'd be interesting to take. So I would break it down to say either like true capitalism is, well, I guess the main claim would just be true capitalism is better than socialism, and I'd take it from one of those angles, or vice versa,
Mhm.
and maybe even say what we mean by, well, you could leave it vague as better, because the child claims will say better in what way.
Right.
So then I could try and map this or something else, and then we could see if there's gaps, things that I can't map from your system, or things in my system that you can't map, like being able to say this claim is more important than the other ones,
Right.
or for someone to debate that something isn't more important than the other ones when someone else claimed it was, might be a feature that I have that you don't have or may even want.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a useful thing to be able to
It's probably
point
only
out that
useful if you're going to
comparison.
do some sort of roll-up scoring based on the importance. Otherwise,
Hmm.
debating that may not be useful. I don't know.
I think the roll up, I don't know if it makes sense on this diagram to have roll up scoring, but like in any of these specific like claims, like if there's children here, then
Mhm.
it seems like it would be able to do some roll up stuff. But I think like comparing two claims on here also still seems, or two scores, like this. I don't know. I don't know if you can debate these independently. I'm sure there's some value in also being able to debate them dependently or, together as related to each other. But
Yeah.
I also have a hard
And
time envisioning what the UI would look like for, I guess you could like maybe could control select two of them or something, or you can do like this and then compare or something. I don't know.
yeah, so well, the way, my scoring is all deeply interrelated. So you can't, it's not, it's always rolling up to the parent kind of claim,
Mm,
which in this case you have multiple solutions, so they'd roll up to each solution in theory.
right.
But you're probably not far enough down that path, because there's some other things you would need before that would be useful. The other thing to think about is, could we apply the reason score algorithm, roll up and scoring, to this? Because it's designed to be pluggable in other systems. Although I'm finding
Right.
that it's very restrictive, so no one's,
Yeah.
it may not be useful in any system, because where you put the nodes really affects the score. in the way that
Oh,
I do the roll-ups.
okay.
So if you build a map without thinking that through, when you run the score, it just looks stupid. You have to go in and rearrange everything.
You mean like left to right? Left is like higher than something on the right, or
It's
like
more like higher and lower. And actually, I'm thinking mine might be reversed, because it is actually interesting that. So I think of the main claim and then the pros and cons beneath it.
okay.
So all the pros and cons roll up to give you a score on their parents. So it's always attacking, something's attacking or supporting. And then the final score is the net result of all the attacks and supports. Is probably
Right.
an okay explanation for now.
Okay. Yeah. I yeah, I wonder if because I guess like this like problem diagram structure separates a lot of the claims out. So like, there's a bunch of implicit claims, but like anyone you try to justify and critique are like on their own, like independent from like anything else that's being justified and critiqued elsewhere. And I think that kind of like trades off the ability to do a roll up that, or
Mhm.
like, yeah, because they're all like independent. So I don't know.
Well, it may
I don't
just
know.
also get down to the level, like when you open up one of those nodes, then you have a tree of pros and cons. So maybe reason score could only work below this
Within,
level.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's
But I would still need to know when you're attacking something or supporting something, are you supporting its truthfulness or its relevance?
oh, I see.
Now I
see.
could do the score just assuming they're all truthfulness and say you don't have a relevance thing,
Oh,
which would probably work in most cases. Relevance is actually pretty rare that people argue about it. And if you
mm,
score something low on truth, it has less of an impact. So it affecting the truth also affects the score of the relevance. Because if it's not true, it shouldn't be relevant.
right. I see.
Um, so in theory, we could still apply the score and see what it does.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have one in here that has quite a few pros and cons or nested levels?
I
Oh, and
don't.
one quick question. What are you using for your drawing library for the?
This is React Flow.
Okay.
That has. It's pretty solid. There's a lot of customization you can do, and I probably mainly just chose it because it's got a lot of stars and it's like, pretty active. So
Yeah, I had that on my list to look at, so that's good to see you've used it.
yeah, it's definitely specific for building diagrams, but yeah, nice customization there. Yeah, I've also, I mean, just like as I've been building this, I've been like trying to think if there's, because I haven't really contributed anything to that. I think like because my application is specifically like I don't know, there's so much more you can do with React Flow than I'm using it for. So it's hard to tell like what's something that would be useful to like contribute back. But I don't know, that's just something in my head. If some of this would be useful.
So I guess I distracted from my other question. Do you have one in here that has a deep nest of pros and
Oh,
cons?
I think the most nesting is two two layers. So no,
Yeah.
but we could, let's see.
Support, critique. Yeah, so
I
all of
think
these in the reason score model would be mostly zeros or ones.
like relatively simple, you mean, or like
Well, so
reason score is supposed to be more valuable when there's more complexity to one group of claims.
Or
claims.
just deeper in the conversation, especially if you're mapping a debate or a video or something like that, or even a group of videos,
Hmm.
just because of the way human brains work. You can't, people don't go that deep. They start losing an argument and they switch to an argument that they think they can win. So
Yeah,
everything is just a whole bunch of shallow arguments, which is
Right.
one thing we want to change in this system. But that's one of the problems with mapping real life arguments, is that unless you pull from lots of sources, and even then people just don't argue that deep.
Hmm.
Do you have one with a pro and a con on it that you know of, or that you could flip
Should
through?
be
Maybe we could flip through on the top level.
like here,
Oh yeah, there
or
we
you
go.
yeah.
Yes, that's a good one. So if we put this one in reason score, oh well, no, because you have a critique on that support, that makes that support quote false.
Oh, I see.
Because there's no reason to believe it's true. You just have
So
to
you'd have to go like, bad gene, or maybe you critique the critique and say like, uh, happiness is not always correlated to genes or
Well,
something like.
I would actually, it'd be better if it was, well, actually, if you didn't have that red critique on that blue at all, and it was just one blue and two reds, then that would be, well, actually, that would still be 0. If you
'Cause
had
there's,
two
like, some
blues
of
and
each.
one red, it would, then the main claim would be like 33% true,
Oh, I see.
because you have two pros and a con, all the same weight, and all 100% true. So it's kind of like, well, you have two reasons to believe it and one reason not to believe it, and they're all at the
Mhm.
same level of importance. So it's a pretty simple scoring system in that way.
Wait, it's 33% true or 66% true? Like if
Depends on
there's
how you
two.
run the numbers.
Okay.
If you're doing a score of the starting of false being 0, then it would be 33. If you're saying 0 is not true, but minus 100 is. If you're putting, it depends on what you're doing at 50 and what you're doing at 0.
Oh, I
So
see.
there's 3 ways to look at it. Like 0 to 100, 0 means proven false, 50 means false, 50 means unknown, and 100 means proven true. Then yeah,
Mhm.
60, it would be somewhere around 60 something.
So are you using -100 or like -100 to 100 for?
I waffle back and forth.
Okay.
I'm using 0 and 1 in the math, and I can't remember now. I think I'm using -1 to 1. But in the UI, I'm not displaying how false something is. It's just like if it's below, it's false, because it gets really complicated to flip everything around for all the pros and cons of the child. So we just make it false. And then if they think that that the opposite is true, I force them to put in a claim that's the reverse of this one, and then have separate pros and cons just for now, because
I
that
see.
whole thing is like, if something goes false, technically you want to flip it to be the opposite of that phrase, so that you can show how it affects the parents.
Right.
It's a design decision that's not solid. So yeah, right now mathematically it's 1 to -1.
Gotcha.
But we don't display the -1s in the UI, or anything below 0 in the UI. It's just considered false. Yeah. So yeah, applying reason score to this specific debate wouldn't be that useful.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that I am so on Kialo, there's like a bunch of really nested back and forth critique support and stuff. And what I feel like it's really hard to like the more nested, maybe this is the point of your score, is that like they're hard to navigate when they get so nested like that. So if you have the score, maybe that just kind of helps you have an indication of like where it's at. But like,
Yeah, this is
what?
one of the things I was selling Michael on the other day, was at the top level, you have all these scores and you can just look and see, oh, I agree with these scores. I disagree with this one, and dig into that. So you can ignore
Oh, I see.
everything else because it's like, oh, that's 100% true. I agree that's 100% true. I don't need to do it. That's 100% false. I agree with that.
Hmm.
Oh, but here's the one where they say it's true and I think it's false. Or they say it's like 90% true and I'm saying, well, it's true, but it's not relevant. So then you dig into there. So in theory, you can get to your disagreement 10 times faster. You don't have to read everything.
Hmm.
And and I think that any debate that's really gone on that really gets as deep as we need to, you kind of need that because the human brain can't handle the complexity.
Right.
But that's my claim. Um,
So I guess one of the things I'm hoping is that with the like problem diagram, like stuff can be put in the problem diagram instead, or like I envision that you'd start off with a debate where you're like supporting and critiquing something, and then when you think of like an alternative, you can like add like two solutions and then like kind of extract the claims from the diagram, or from the one claim you started with maybe, into like this diagram view that has the comparison, like I don't know, the table to compare and criteria out here. Because like one of the things I was noticing that I was frustrated with is like if you have well, I guess in general, like a claim, like an argument where it's just like one claim at the top is like very hard to do comparison of more than two things at once. And then if you want to do more than two things, it seems like you have to make like an argument that this is more important than that, and then like B is more important than C, and then A is more important than C, and that's how you get like the overall comparison. And then you'd have like repeated claim, like the same claims for why A is better than B would come up in why is A is better than C. So then like by extracting like these criteria, that hopefully you'd reduce the duplication of those, like the claims made across
mhm.
those things.
Yeah. So one philosophy where I kind of differ from a lot of people in CDL is I don't want to tackle making things easier to do the data entry.
Oh,
Because, and the deduplication even, because I think the core issue is that we still don't even know how to think about it. If we had a system that did all that, we still wouldn't be solving the problem, is we don't have a way to look at that data, to understand it, understand what it means. So it's
right.
like I can think of a lot of ways in the future to do duplication, deduplication, to do comparisons between items. There's a lot of known math in that, so that's not a problem I'm focusing on. So
Mhm.
reason score right now is very manual, but I can throw people at it if I really wanted to do something.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm just working on how do you understand a claim. Now, one of my theories is that if you have two claims like we should spend, like we have, let's say we have some land, we're trying to decide what to do with it. We should build a hospital there, or we should build a grocery store there. I think if you build those claims beneath it and you talk about, oh, a grocery store is valuable, a hospital is valuable, then the one with the higher score would generally be the one you would want to do. And
Right.
but recognizing that there would be claims down there that says a hospital is more important than a grocery store, and a grocery store is more important than a hospital. So I'm actually kind of just hiding that problem
I see.
But you're right, it does sit there, and later on you could be more efficient. Now, also though, my nodes can have multiple parents. So, and the relationship is reversible. So you can have that claim in two different trees, and in one tree it's a support, and the other tree it's an attack.
Oh,
So
okay.
then, in theory, as you put on the child nodes, it'll update the total scores on both sides. So there is
So
a bit
like
of deduplication.
the hospital is better than the school, or do you say school? One of those, whatever.
Grocery store.
Grocery store. Hospital is better than the grocery store in support of the grocery store, or the hospital tree could be reused. Opposite, like hospital is better than store is a critique of the
Yeah,
grocery store.
right.
Okay.
So then in
That
theory,
reduces some of the duplication then.
yeah,
That way.
in theory, I haven't actually mapped one of those out yet.
Right.
Although my data store doesn't store it that way right now, but the core math has that. The math and the data model I use on the client supports that. So
Gotcha.
actually, the way I'd have to do it today is I would have one data object that has two top nodes and shares some links. So I could simulate it.
Okay. Gotcha.
Now
Oh.
my code right now is in React. I don't know, 2.
Oh, wow.
It's really old. So it's like, it was, yeah, like it was way before hooks, way before. So it's like I'm looking at the code and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna rewrite this because it's just too old.
Oh man. Yeah, that's it'd be nice to just like get it automatically. I wonder, I'm sure one of the hot AI these days could just, hey, rewrite this in React 12 or whatever. I don't know what the latest one
Yeah,
is, but
actually that's a distinct possibility. I should take a function and do that and see if I can do it. I was doing some fictional UI because I want to start making YouTube videos going through debates like this.
Mhm.
And I wanted some fancy graphics. To just because I want to. I don't know.
Mm.
So I asked GPT-4 to write me CSS and HTML of a fictional user interface like Iron Man. And it started doing it, but it ran out of time. It was too slow. So then I
wait.
did it and said, just do one kind of widget. And it ended up making a circle. So actually there's a term, there's actually a
thing?
term called fictional UI, a FUI instead of a GUI.
Oh my God. I have not.
But no one, and actually I'm gonna make a FUI online FUI designer, which I haven't found one. I don't think there's anyone, I don't think anyone's made it, but a website you can go and you could say, build me, I choose my styles, choose my designs. Do y'all want to see one of them real quick?
Yeah, yeah.
GUI generator would be amazing, but yeah.
I have not. Is it like? Yeah, I'm curious. I am having a hard time
Well,
envisioning.
and this is, well, actually, oops. What screen are y'all looking at? I don't know what screen. Oh yeah, that black one. Okay, good. The way it should be. Code. I thought I opened up the window. Where is it? I keep forgetting. I'm doing all my experimentation on CodePen, .io.
.io.
Can't type. No, I can't type. I have to take out. Why am I having to log in? What? Oh, I'm in the wrong. Sorry. I was in
I don't
my
actually
work.
see. Oh wait.
I have a different work browser. So like this is just a widget that might be in the corner, kind of just animating just to look fancy. You see that there?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, my
Yeah, I
like
see it.
it was
Yeah.
some background for me, but okay. So this is for like a. Wait, how did you make this? This is from.
The CS. Well, no, this I made. Well, actually, I took someone else's. I did find someone that had some animated, spinners, and I took theirs and I adapted it to do this. So you can imagine, you have these like lines on an interface, and then just in the corner, there's this little thing kind of doing that.
Mhm.
And I'm calling them greebs. I don't know if y'all know
Greaves.
greebles. Greebles, when you're doing model making, greebles are the little, like in Star Wars, all those funky little shapes on the side of the ship. Those are called greebles.
Oh.
So I'm gonna call these greebs, and I'm working on like a circular one, but that one I haven't gotten very far. I had to use SVG for that. But for reason score, I wanted to have a kind of a thermometer on the left-hand side that shows you what the score is. And I didn't want it to give you an actual number because that's too accurate. Like 60,
Yeah. Okay.
65, that's like, really? Is it 65? No, it's somewhere in the mid 60s.
Mm.
So I thought of having kind of an old style, old world interface where it just has kind of a glowing section to show you where it's at. And it's not really, I don't know if you can see it really well, but the numbers actually get brighter and the edges get brighter where the indicator is at. And this one's just cycling back and forth up and down so you can see the style.
Uh-huh.
Anyway,
I can see the change. Yeah.
That's cool. I have
so
not.
I was thinking of a video. So as I do it, so here's a proclaim for this side, and there will be a stack of. Let me see if I got one. There would be a stack of claims kind of like this, where it's like you can see all the pros and cons, except they'd be grouped by color, which this isn't.
Oh.
And then you would see it add there, and then you'd see the score kind of go up. So as I'm talking, people would see the score changing.
Mhm.
And then they could follow the debate based on that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Anyways, yeah, so that's what I'm playing with these days. I'm spending a lot of time, wasting a lot of time creating little graphics that do nothing. I decided my next one's going to be a binary clock that'll be counting up during the video. So you'll be able to look at the binary thing and tell what minute of the video you're at. But it won't be obvious because it's just gonna be a whole bunch of lights that blink on and off.
Wait, wait. Just you mean binary intentionally to make it not like
Not
distracting, I
obvious.
guess, or
No, I mean these are completely distracting and that's all they are, but just to make it look fancy.
okay.
But this one, to the correct person, does have utility.
Does actually work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to be annoying, right?
And you can kind of tell, like, if there's more dots on the left, then it's later in
Yeah.
the video.
So something like this is except instead of the ones and zeros, they would be lights.
Yeah, that's funny.
So you'd see it kind of counting up and just kind of flashing. So I'm gonna play with that one. And then yeah, it'd be fun to have a website where you could say, okay, make all the colors blue or make all the colors yellow, so then you can control the coloration, whether you use shadows and all that stuff. So you could create your own UI.
Yeah.
It's it's a complete waste of time. I should be working on Reason Score, but I'm doing that instead.
I haven't really dabbled into much animation or like complex CSS or anything, but I know there's a lot of really cool, like it can really add some sleekness to a user interface.
Yeah.
And I need to do that at some point, but
Well, at codepen.io/Bentley Davis, you can see all the little things I'm playing with,
okay.
and see the code. You can get in here and play with it. So like, where's the color? I'm starting to use CSS variables so you can change the speed, timing interval, how long it waits between each one. But I need to put the color on there. Background color. Light gray. With a blue box shadow. Ooh, that looks ugly. Take off the background. That's the problem. Yeah, there you go.
Ooh.
Blue's too dark.
The animations you're doing to show off like where to represent the score of an argument or several arguments at a high level, I think are extremely useful. Like anything that can somehow show context of very complex things or deeply
Yeah.
nested things that's super awesome.
Right.
Yeah, and I've done some. So like, I was thinking like instead of using numbers, these are buckets. So like if it's full and it's solid, then you know it's true and relevant. If
Mm.
it's just the kind of webbing, then you know it's true, but it's not relevant. And then, you know, you can kind of get a feeling for, oh, it's sort of true, it's sort of relevant. So the total score is here, right? So that's my feeling is that one of these, not all of these, of course, this is just a design style sheet.
Yeah.
But this bucket is, I think, the most kind of intuitive way of showing relevance and importance on a roll-up score.
Yeah, I hadn't considered showing both like in the same thing, and that's like using two different like representations that overlap is an
Here's
interesting
Golibot
idea
that I
to
can't
do
use
that.
anymore.
Oh no.
I everyone thinks it's AI, so I can't use a bot. I was like using a bot because it's like it's a simple algorithm that a computer's doing. So if it's wrong, it's not because the algorithm's wrong. It's wrong because your data, you know, you haven't put in all the pros and cons. But people kept going, oh, so you're using AI? No. I had to abandon that.
Hmm.
And like, here's a potential for a, it's kind of small to see, kind of a tree view of showing the nestingness of the claims.
Hmm.
One of the things about rather than using a flow, although I probably will use a kind of a flow chart like you were using, Joel, is that it doesn't work real good on mobile phones. So as just kind of a standard kind of tree view is one of the things that was going to be kind of like the base default interface. I
Yeah.
don't have. While we're at it, let me show you one other experimentation, unless y'all are bored.
I'm curious.
So visualizing how, so you have a whole bunch of claims and there's a roll-up score. Visualizing how how the scores roll up to affect each other is
We're still on your code pen. Just okay. never
yeah,
mind.
oh yeah, I was searching for it. I didn't want to accidentally show off my email or something. So me and my co-founder at Refractive, I'd say co-founder, he's the founder, my coworker. We're working on different UI things. Although this is a big board, it's gonna take a second.
Wait, Refactive, do you guys do the clustering? The Miro cluster plugin?
Yeah, clusterizer.
Yeah. I found
Now
that
you have to
long
be
time ago.
careful. We create the clusterizer plugin before Miro created their own and called it clusterizer.
I
So
did
we
not know
still
that.
have one in the marketplace, and then they have their official one. They're two different apps, but they
Yeah.
do very similar things. But
Cool.
yeah, that's Refractive. So Max Harper started that, and he built clusterizer. And now we're building PowerPack, which is I'll have to show you that sometime. But like he was like here's one to where like as you have pros and cons, they're kind of like creating thickness of roots, and like you can see the brown one is kind of sickly and dying as opposed to the green one's having a lot of power. So that's some of the things he was talking about, is use kind of earth tones because people understand like growth and kind of death,
Yeah.
like an upside down tree, with some of his kind of visual concept ideas. Do I have it in here?
I do like using color like that.
These are all the like using physics. So you could show how pros are pulling it one way and cons are pulling it the other way, and then you'd have the center bar moving, and then you can get an intuitive idea. There's using weights. Or something like these are the pros and these are the cons, and then you can kind of see how it'll teeter totter on them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just a lot of. Oh, here's where I was kind of. This is an actual sketch I did. So like these cons are coming up, but this pro blocks them, or eats away at it. So then it's thinner when it comes up. So you can kind of see the attacks and the supports by adding to a flow of, like you can think of it as a flow of water or a thickness of nutrients or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of like a Sankey diagram, right?
Is that what this is called? I've
Yeah,
seen things like this
they're
before.
Sankey diagrams, yeah. So it would be different than this a little bit. And I have put the reason score data in a Sankey diagram. The problem is that in reason score, like let's say you have a whole bunch of claims, they can end up being zero weight. And then how do you display them on the screen if they have if they take up no space? Do you just not have them there, or do you show them as empty things?
Well, wouldn't they have zero weight because of their children, or do they start out with zero without?
Yeah, no,
children?
they that's a good question. They do well. They have zero. Yeah, they have zero weight because of their children. But once the children make it zero weight, then its weight is zero. There's no way to calculate its weight to display on the screen because its weight is relative. So everything goes up to 100%. So everything's a percentage of the total weight. So if a child is making its parent have zero weight, there is no number because it's zero. There's no number to make it a relative against everything else. So mathematically, there's no way to calculate how big it should be.
Mm.
Anyways, so yeah, so
Yeah.
these are some of the flow diagrams you can see where it's like a lighter purple is where they're canceling each other out and not continuing, and then you can see some continue up.
Mhm.
When you're designing these, do you ever think about, I imagine you do, but do you have any examples of how it looks for like a zoomable user interface, like taking that and going down a level into it, or zooming into it or out of it?
Most of these designs are assuming that there'd be some kind of plus and minus here. The problem we were trying to solve here was how to look at the big view. So we weren't focusing on the zoomability. Because a lot of times you do kind of like Yellow, where you just show one level at a time and then you go to the next level.
Mhm.
But if it's a tree view, you could do this. But in reason score, everything's a percentage of the total. So zooming out is often just hiding the children, but the parent takes up the same space that the children would have been. So if you're looking at the top level and you like clicked on something, it would take the same visual volume, but it would break down into smaller pieces. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
in theory. Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's anything else interesting. Back when I had GullyBot, so you can see like the pros and the cons, they had different colors and
Mhm.
yeah. Anyways. So that's here's more stuff over here. Yeah, all the different ways to kind of show the pipes going up.
Mhm.
Still trying to kind of figure this out. How to do a UI that would that would be understandable. But I think the problem with the children, probably the biggest problem is the problem with that the children, there's no way to calculate their size once they are contributing, all the children of something that's been made 0. We could make it the size of, and there's no way to calculate what it would be if it didn't make a 0. I haven't figured out that calculation. It seems to get recursive in the math. So,
Mm,
although there is a way to say that if you just take all the children claims and they're not pros or cons, and you just give them a percentage. So like if there's 2 children, then they each get 50%. If there's 2 children underneath that 56%, they're each 25. You can just do that and then make any empty ones that size of whatever percentage it would be. But that seems sometimes misleading to different viewers. Oh, and I have all these landing pages for Reasonpedia and Reason Score explaining it different ways.
ooh.
This is a fun one. Warning, not to be trusted. Untrusted since 2022. Trust, we don't need no sneaking trust. Because people keep going, it's like, should I trust your system? And like, no. You're supposed to read it and think about it.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
you're supposed to comment back. It's like, oh, open feedback. A monthly reward for finding the biggest hole.
Seems like this is probably like one of the biggest hurdles we have is designing these systems or thinking about the like getting people to actually use their own brain while doing it, like
Yeah.
instead of just wanting to be delivered an answer. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, yeah, it's kind of reducing cognitive load. Well, you want to reduce and encourage. It's kind of a combination of both. You want to encourage people to be willing to use the cognitive load, but some of that is to make it as easy for them as possible. Thought about having a prize. I still might do that.
Competitive fact checking.
Yeah.
Ooh. That sounds interesting. Yeah.
But when I was doing all this, it was Reason. Well, yeah, it's Reason. So yeah, then I came up with Reasonpedia. It's just help us find holes in popular arguments, because that just initially tells them we're not claiming that the arguments in this list are not claiming to be, as an organization, we're not saying they're true. We're presenting them and saying find holes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the website you'll see today. That's kind of where I ended up. Although now I'm working on the video series that I'm thinking of doing would be Evidence Explorers, which gives the same concept as like, we're not making a final judgment on what's true or false. We're just digging deep into the exploration.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not allowed to buy any more domains. I've been restricted.
Wait, excuse me.
Well, no, that's more spousal approval.
Oh,
I was gonna
No.
ask who was the
On buying. Yeah, who's restricting?
who's
Yeah,
restricted?
I like being married, so I'm not buying any more domains.
Did you put that into Reason Score or Reasonpedia?
No, because like being married was like, it's like what could be more important? It had an infinity sign next to it on levels of importance. It's like,
makes
wow.
sense. Yeah.
You just bought a new car though, so maybe.
car equals one more domain.
Right, yeah, I get a domain. All right. Well, I came in and just took over the meeting.
It was very informative and I loved it. So
Yeah, I appreciate the discussion as well.
Awesome.
On that note, it's probably good time to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bow out anyway.
Yeah,
So
I got
as well.
And I'll
right.
watch your earlier discussion a little later.
Cool.
We'll see you guys next week.
Next week.
Cheers.